Hey guys, today we are going to discuss Ruby's Windows installation, but before, what needs to be understood first, is that there are multiple implementations of the Ruby programming language, so in other words, Ruby, the programming language, is implemented by different people, or groups of people, using different technologies. The official Ruby implementation is called CRuby, C as in Ruby implemented using the C programming language. CRuby is also called MRI Ruby, where MRI stands for Matz's Ruby Interpreter. Matz is the original author of Ruby. You also have Ruby being implemented using the Java Virtual Machine. This is called JRuby. Iron Ruby is Ruby implemented using the .NET framework. So at this stage, the question is how to install Ruby. Well, since this is a Windows installation, there are multiple ways to proceed. So if you prefer, you can use a package manager, so you have chocolatey and cygwin, where each of these package managers have its own aim. Chocolatey is, for example, if you want to install Chrome, Firefox, or other software from the command line, or using a script, so if you want to automate some software installation, well, at this stage you can use chocolatey. Cygwin is about porting Linux tools to Windows, so for example you can install the grep regular expression search utility, or the GCC compiler, or other utilities available under Linux, on Windows. Starting Windows 10, what you also have is what is called WSL, which is Windows Subsystem for Linux. Basically this will allow you to install a Linux distribution under Windows, so having a Linux distribution available from within Windows, you can just use whatever Linux tool you are interested in, from within Windows, so in our case it will be Ruby. Finally, if you prefer just downloading and installing Ruby just like any other regular Windows application, this can also be done. I will show you how to install Ruby using these three methods under Windows. At this stage, we will be installing Ruby using chocolatey, so what is needed is first to install chocolatey, so we will just Google that. Googling will provide us with some results, so let us click on setup/install chocolatey. And at this stage just browsing through the documentation a little bit. It seems we can choose to install chocolatey by either using the command or the PowerShell utilities, so let us do it using the PowerShell. So just click on Start, type in PowerShell, and run it as administrator. Now you need to check if your execution policy is set to restricted. And if this is the case, it must be set to all signed, or to bypass scope process. So just press Y or A when prompted if you want to change the execution policy. Now to start the installation process, just copy execute the command. While installing you can get to know chocolatey better, by searching for a cheat sheet. So just click on the pointed link. Basically this cheat sheet will teach you how to search and list packages, so one way of checking for available packages, is by using the chocolatey website. Here you have a view of the packages which are available to be installed. The package that we want is Ruby. The installation having finished. At this stage, we need to restart the shell. There are multiple available versions of Ruby that you can install. We will just install the official Ruby implementation. So just to get back to the cheat sheet, you can also view how to install packages. A -Y can be added when installing a package to acknowledge any prompt. Additionally, the cheat sheet teaches you on how to upgrade and uninstall packages. Installation will proceed at this stage. After it is done, we need to verify the success of having Ruby installed. Once the installation is over, we can restart the shell. At this stage, just type in ruby-v to check the version of Ruby that you have installed. You can also type IRB to have interactive Ruby. Once you have a prompt to enter something, just type in puts hey and press enter. And this is your typical hello world message, so in other words Ruby is working. To install Ruby using cygwin, Google cygwin. Click on installation. Download the setup file. Run it. Click next, next for install from the internet. Next for all users. Next for the local package directory, next for use system proxy settings. Choose a download site. At this stage, you have the available packages. So just type Ruby in the search box. And select the version of Ruby you want to install. It seems that cygwin does not offer the most recent versions of Ruby. Additionally, if you wish, you can install Git or Nano. Once you are done, just click on Next, followed by Next, so cygwin will install the packages at this stage. Once done, click on Finish. To check if Ruby is installed correctly, just launch the cygwin terminal and type in ruby-v. Next you can test Ruby interactively by typing in IRB. And you can just enter puts hey to have the typical hello world message. At this stage, we will be installing Ruby by using WSL. So start by opening PowerShell. To list the available Linux distributions that can be installed using WSL, you can use the command WSL list online. So for example here you have Ubuntu, Debian, Kali. To install a distribution just run WSL install-d, followed by the distribution name. We will be installing Debian. At this stage you need to reboot your computer. Now you can check the status of the installed Linux distribution, using WSL-status. So what you have here is that the default distribution is Debian, the default WSL version used is 2, and you also have the kernel version number. To shut down running Linux distributions, you can run WSL-shutdown. To run a Linux command you can just precede it with WSL, or you can just type in WSL to get into your Linux shell. Let us start by updating the Debian repositories, by issuing the command WSL apt-get update. At this stage we need to enter the password. For more information about WSL, you can Google Microsoft WSL basic commands. And click on the Microsoft link. To install Ruby on Linux we will be using a version manager. So just Google RBENV, Ruby, RubyGems. And after that click on the DFL link. Next click on how to install RBENV. At this stage you just need to copy and execute the commands. But before we need to start by installing Git, so just run WSL apt-get install Git. Press Y to acknowledge the prompt. Now you need to run the git clone command, preceded by WSL. After that, get into the Debian shell, by running the WSL command, and execute the following command. If you receive an error message, that the GCC compiler was not found, then you just need to install it, by issuing sudo apt-get install build essential. At this stage the command can be executed. Next copy and execute the following command. Now copy and execute the following one. Now edit your bash profile and copy and paste the line to add. Next execute the following command. Now execute the command after. And finally execute the last one. At the stage you can check the cheat sheet that this web page contain, to continue the installation of Ruby. To list the available versions of Ruby, ready to be installed, you can execute rbenv install-l. So you have versions 2.6, 2.7, 3.1, and JRuby, that can be installed. To install Ruby, just run ruby install followed by the version number that you wish to install. If installation fails, with the message that SSL and zlib are missing, then you just need to install them first. At this stage, you can install Ruby with success. Next you must run rbenv rehash, to update rbenv with the new available commands. Next you can check what are the installed Ruby versions, by running rbenv versions. Finally you can set the Ruby version to be used, by running rbenv global version number. Finally we will install Ruby using a regular Windows installer. So just Google Windows Ruby installer. Click on the download link. A Ruby installer can be downloaded with or without DevKit. With DevKit gems with C extensions can be compiled immediately. So let us just download Ruby with DevKit, the pointed version. Once the download is done, just click on the downloaded file to run the installer. Accept the license. Click on install after that. Click on next. Installation is underway at this stage. Click on finish. Just press enter at this stage. Finally it is going to tell you, that MSYS is installed correctly, that everything is okay, and that there is nothing to do. Just press enter to finish the installation. Press start, type in Ruby, and click on start command prompt with Ruby. At this stage type ruby-v, and you will get the Ruby version that you have installed. Type in IRB. Puts hey. This is your typical hello world example.